All right, let's see if we can get this underway. Hey. Yeah. Hey. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. It's just waiting on the old couch about to fire before this train leaves the station. It's a pretty light morning here. Friday was insane. Just back to back meetings. But Monday, wee bit lighter. At least they're spaced out a little more. Rebecca's back in here with, frankly, some of the questions that she had from Friday. So we're going to tackle those for her. She may have the entire lane, actually, too, which is kind of interesting. Also, 106 degrees, Rebecca. I just saw her update. 106 degrees in May. Wow, that is something. Rebecca's in Israel. So, for those of you in the continental U.S. that are wondering, where the hell is it 106? Israel, it's 106. And it's kind of interesting when you think about that. It's like, wow, it gets really hot some places. One of those places I discovered last summer was Mumbai. Mumbai gets steamy, y'all. Very steamy, and it's surrounded by water on both sides. Whew. Nothing you want to mess with. Interesting place, though. Without question. And very interesting. It's set up a lot like New York. It's like New York without the Long Island part. It's long and narrow, and it's not as narrow as Manhattan. Actually, it's a little wider. But it looks like we might have a couch. We do have a couch bot sighting. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, once again, it's time for the feedback loop. Welcome back. Happy Monday to you. Chris Courtney here, New Pragmatic. I'm happy to be here chugging along with you as we get deep into May. I mean, we're May 18th. Where did that come from? Got a light load this morning. It was a very busy weekend for me. Released a lot of new material. Spoke with a lot of new people. Gabby, we see you over there in Madrid. Thanks for checking in. We got Rebecca from Israel in here this morning. She's got a lot of work that needs to be tended to. So we're going to tend to Rebecca. But outside of that, it's a pretty light morning. Weather's getting nicer. People are going outside, spending a little less time on their work. I get it. You got to get outside. We've all been cooped up because of the pandemic, and it's nice to frankly just get outside for a minute. So I get it. I tell you what I'm doing. I don't know if you can do this, but here's what I do. I got a chair and I got a porch. I take my computer out there. I do a lot of my writing. Like the vast majority of this program was written outside on a porch. And I do that for my own sanity. I can't possibly stay inside. So I get it. Everybody, you're all stir crazy. I've written more just sitting on a stair on a stoop than I can possibly relate to anybody. One of the other programs that I wrote was almost completely written on a staircase. It was a little outside staircase at a building in San Francisco. I'd go out there because the weather out in San Francisco is ridiculous. I'd go outside, sit on a little stoop. It wasn't like a fancy thing. I didn't have a chair. I just had my laptop and my legs. But I was outside. I didn't need much else than that. So I totally get it. So get outside when you can. Just take your laptop with you. A lot of times when you're doing design work, there's a lot of setup before you do anything that requires a mouse. Like there's a lot of research that you can be doing. There's a lot of exploration you can be doing. Don't feel like, design begins and ends with one of these things. And many of you, there are people that tell me they do it with a trackball or they only use a pen. I get it. Everybody does it differently. But there's so much research and exploration that goes into all of our projects before we get to that like creative part. And and I shouldn't say creative, before we get that visual output. Some of your projects may not even have a visual output. Some of your projects may just be a thought experiment that provides guidance to a client. It's also interesting this morning. I see that my my auxiliary microphone is working. So Luigi, we won't have that issue today now that we're not looking at your work, which is, it was both helpful. Thank you, thank goodness for Luigi, but also terrible because I was like explaining. I was going really deep in on his work, and he wasn't able to see me talk. He saw me, he just couldn't hear me. Hey, let's stop monologuing. Let's get right to it. So Rebecca's got her submission here, and she's looking for help on a couple of things. One, she saw I made a suggestion about presenting her wireframes wide like this, mainly because they are just wireframes. So much of this project was the research that went into the wireframe suggestion. Okay? And then she had these animations that she built as well. The thing here is, hey Chris, how the hell do I do that? How do I go wide? I've got this grid, and it's sometimes frankly just one of those things that we forget about if we're not thinking about narrow wide. It becomes very difficult to recall how to do that. So I'm gonna take Rebecca through just a wee bit of that. Instead of like putting the wireframes in there, I'm gonna create a space in your project, just where we're gonna snip off the column structure and we're gonna begin it again. And in that space, you're gonna have this wide area, okay? And the way I want you to think about it is, you've got a column structure that basically works like this right now. In your HTML, you've got to basically say, all right, this is going to stop right here. And you could actually stop it here if you want it to. And then you would essentially restart it here, end it really abruptly, begin it again here, and keep going. But in this spot, in this moment, this is going to go wider. Okay? And this is just going to be we'll make it a div, and it'll go wide. It won't be anything special. It's just going to break the container. Okay? And in that means that what I'd probably do is I'd put in my wireframes. I'd put them in the CSS grid or Flexbox rather. I'd go wide with it and just call it a day. Just call it a day. And when you get into a responsive mode, like mobile, I'd just shrink it down to maybe 3 of them or 2 of them, just to adjust how that's being displayed. But that's really what we're about to do. We're about to snip the container. Now I could extend this one container down. I've shown it like this mainly because I want to be able to group this information. But the trouble with grouping it is it's not like this container breaks when we get down to the animations, because it may not. So I want to group this together as its own section. And to do that, I need this little nub of a container up here, the very wide one, and then the follow-up. And then I can close it, and it's its own section. We'll take a look at that, though. Let's go ahead and hop into the code. And as you can see, I've got just a ton of stuff in here from what my writing. My weekend was just full of writing new exercises for you folks. Which I like to do, by the way. It's not a drag. I actually really enjoy writing and creating. All right, so this right now, for all intents and purposes, there's going to be no CSS that I'm going to write for this particular portion. I am going to come through and let's see, what is that? Okay, I think that's the old Cellwise hero. So you have this content container. And it starts right here. And it's a div. Project overview. I got the section 2 call right. This is your UX deliverables. Okay, so we've got project atmosphere, close that. Users, close that. Information architecture. I do appreciate you going through and adding in these things. This makes it much easier to see what the hell's going on. Section cell-wise wireframes. Okay, here we go. So to do this, I need to come through and say, all right, we're going to close that div down. When we save it, let's go live so we can take a look at this in a test environment. Okay, you're still working on that. Oh boy, we broke something really badly here. Let's undo all of that. I didn't pull. I get stashed. We're gonna stash this. Let's stash it. All right. Let's come back over and take a look. See if it. Okay. So that. Okay. So it's less pissy now. Let's pull in your updates. Sometimes I just get ahead of myself. Okay, it's up to date. All right. Well, great. What that means is I can come through. Okay, so this div class container. Wide container, content container. I'm going to guess that what I'm dealing with here is content container. And content container should be able to end right here and not break everything else. So it looks like that held. When we get down to wireframes, it should start doing some really weird stuff. Now this also is doing weird stuff, but we'll come back to that. Information architecture and wireframes. Boom. All right. So now it's like off into the races. It doesn't know what the hell it's doing. And that's great. Let's take that away and look back at it. Okay. That's very interesting. Yeah, this isn't what I would do here, but that's okay. That's okay. We're gonna bring this broken div back in, and it's really weird that it's holding that section again. So let's look at your flows. Let's get those out of there. That should make these disappear. I'm not sure why. I'm not sure what we're really looking at here. This is really bizarre. It looks like a bunch of stuff is kind of crammed together in this image. Let's also get rid of that. And for some reason, this isn't really updating the way that I would anticipate it updating. So maybe something's busted here. Okay. Let's compare this. Okay. I didn't say I wanted to learn more. Let's typically speaking, it's got a I don't understand. Okay, that's fine. Okay, save it. Let's come back over. Okay, yes. now it is operating as I would have hoped that it would a moment ago. right, now we'll look at wireframes. Okay, so now this is going edge to edge, although it's super big. So it's like going stupid wide. And it's taking everything with it, and that's okay. The first thing I want to do is I want to re-establish this container after. So I'm going to come down here and say container. We're going to go past wireframes. We're going to go down to UX writing. And in UX writing, I'm going to say, hey, div class container, or content container. I don't need that closing div because I still have it from before. Now I've saved that. And now you'll see that this container is still acting really weird. So why is that occurring? That's really bizarre. Let's take a look. I want to just hide this this cell-wise really wide flow. Okay, so that wide flow is what is currently breaking everything down. Yes. All right. So now that we've gotten that sorted, we can come back and fix this. Because what we've done is we've reestablished the grid for down here, and we have the grid established for up here. So the only thing that we really have that isn't reestablished is right here, and we're going to do that right now. We're going to come back and we're going to say, okay, section wireframes, I'm going to put you back in this container, and then I'm going to close this container around wireframes. And you're probably thinking, Chris, why are you doing that? Why the container just around wireframes? And again, I'm putting this container back into play around this image, mainly so that I can control the width within the section, because I want you to be able to see where all of this is occurring. And this is all going to, because I'm doing it this way, this container's being applied specifically in the section, which means if you were to later remove this section or move the section around, because you've got this weird little move happening, it's not going to impact anything. You'll be able to move it wherever, and it'll just kind of plug and play, go with it. So now this wireframe, it looks no different than UX writing below it because of the way we've built this. So it's very flexible. It's modular in that it can move somewhere else. Now we'll bring this crazy flow image back. All right. And that flow image is going edge, and then it blows out to the side. And I was wondering, why the hell is this? Why is this happening? I know why it's happening. The way you've written your container is it has a padding, and the padding determines the width. If there is anything that is not playing along, like something says, oh, I have more than 100% width, then this vertical width, or this viewport width, is going to blow up on you. And that's why this is occurring. If you came back through and you said, yeah, my width is 100%. That should hold this in place, but it's not, again, because this image is breaking it. But if I come into this image, let's see, we have wireframes right here, and I'm looking for this image, and I say, okay, bad boy image, width equals 100%. That fixes everything. Like that, now everything's right back to where it was. Okay? Now, you've got a lot of weird things filling this in, and I cannot begin to talk about what's in here. We definitely need some work here to make this function. This isn't actually how I would suggest building this. I would suggest building this as individual pages so that it's more responsive. You can do something with it. But for right now, I think it's important to understand how this container inside out, back to inside works so that you can function with it. I'm going to put your class of full. You should have a class of full on here. So the class of full works. I'm going to save this. I'm going to refresh. And that's now there. Now, again, I would do something different with these images. Specifically, I would come in and I'd probably create a div. Now this div is going to go wide, so I'm just going to call this class wide wire. So wide wire, if you will, is going to exist here, and I'm going to go in now. I'm going to write some CSS. So let's find your actually, let's look and see here. I want to find this flows because I want to create it near flows for you. Flows. Okay, so there's flows. And flows, content container, background, none. So the problem here is you don't really need content container for flows because we're getting rid of that concept. We're removing content container from the mix. So that was gonna cause a problem anyway. Let's do this wide wire. And I want to make sure that that's what I called it. Yeah, wide wire. So wide wire, I'm going to give this a background color. I'm just going to call it green just so we can see it. I'm going to give it a width. The width is 100%. And for our purposes, I'm also going to give this one a height. But this is really just so we can see it. I want the height to be established by your content. So the height here will just be 100 pixels or 10 rem, however you want to do that. And then finally, I want to put a margin bottom on it. Margin bottom. And I'll make that 2 rem. Mainly because I want there to be some space between this and the content above it. I'll save it. We'll come back over. And now there's this wide rail here. I do want to, so we can properly see this, I want to turn this off. So now you've got this section here. Now this section could be deeper, but what I'm really seeing here is I'm seeing the need to add your wireframes in one at a time as images that would go across this thing, rather than as one large image that was kind of static. I want this thing to be flexible. So to do that, in this wide wire we get a display flex. Okay, because this is going to space out over the width, and then you would have a number of divs or images inside of wide wire that would then be adjustable within it. So I would say you'd have your image and you would basically do 5 of these, and I'm just gonna list them here. There's not any content I can put into them at the moment because they don't exist, but I would break this flow up into 5 little wireframes. I'd place them in here, display them. They're already set up to display Flexbox, and then they're going to be adjustable. They're going to be adjustable to whatever structure you have, but now you've got this ability to go wide, but you're also still on the grid, just like we showed over here. This is the same exact structure. I ended this container, began a new one, but within, like, this is all within the section. Wherever this ends, this ends up down here. So I'm gonna, for our purposes of seeing it, we'll multiply that too. So this section is all together. It's got 2 container divs on it, one here, mainly to control the width, and then this wide wire is set up so that you can display those images that we were showing right there. But I would do these as individuals, not as one unit. Okay? But I'll make sure to push this up. you know, you're just literally filling in the space with images, and it is going to be responsive, and that's our goal. Our goal is always responsive. So there's that. Let's take a look at the other question you had. That's me. Oh wait, that's me. Okay. So let's come back to your doc here. Wireframe collage. All right. Showed that. Let's come back up here. Again, I tried to implement CSS grid for the user section somewhat successfully, but somewhat unsuccessfully. I think I know what you're talking about. So there was this area above up here. Yes. Yes, I recognize what's going on here. So if I remember correctly, in Figma, whoops, not that, over here. Well, not that either. Hey, Chris, how about Figma? Yeah, right there. So over here in Figma, yeah, you've got this design right now where it's 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, and I don't really think you need CSS grid to do much here, because if I just copy this over and I paste it, oh, I'm going to paste it over here. Yeah, this is different than having this sort of situation. Whoops, sorry. So let's follow the logic here. If you have this sort of situation, and then your goal is to have this all fold down, like when this folds down into mobile, the problem that always occurs here, yipe, yipe, yipe. The problem that always occurs here is, okay, so this folds down here, and it's like that, right? And then this, the problem becomes this goes underneath, and obviously the issue here is the next one goes like this, and that's you're like, well, that's not what I want on mobile, right? That's the problem. You know, you don't want these illustrations butting up against one another. So you use grid area, right? And with grid area, it, you know, you can tell it, hey, I want you to be up here instead. But when you don't have this scenario, when you have this scenario, this is just grid, because it's going to fold down 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. That's easy peasy. There's no movement really needed. That's the simplest of the combinations. And there's nothing wrong with that, by the way. If you can have a simple design that works for you, fantastic. I don't have a problem with it. So let's look and see what you got. I have not looked at the code yet, so I'm projecting where we're going to be going with this. Let's just inspect it here before I jump into the code. So let's see product title. I bet there's a grid area on this. Yep, there's, okay. So you've got title, which by the way you can still do. There's nothing keeping you from doing that. But what it's going to require is it's going to require a, yeah, I see, dot title image text, dot title image text, and then you come back up here and yeah, okay, so yeah, okay, all right, let's jump in here and take a peek. Again, this is one of those things where I want to just close down anything that I don't need. That section of the wireframes, this is content container, so I got to get back in here. Users. Okay, so here we are in the users section. I see persona nerd. Oh, okay. Okay, I see persona nurse, persona healthcare admin, and then persona healthcare admin. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Let's simplify this a bit. Let's just make it simpler. Um, because again, in this instance, the way you have it designed in Figma, if I could find my way back to Figma, yeah, there it is. These are aligned, okay? So I'm just going to create a div that allows these to be aligned. And I'm not even sure we need to create a div. It's like this information needs to be a div. So it's illustration div, right? It's illustration div. And I see company stakeholders, I see developers, I see investors. I'm not sure why it's wrapped twice. I'm going to save that. Let's see. Okay. Oh, okay. Immediately it like gets back to something close to normal, right? Although for your design, again, it's not quite it's not quite the same as what you had before. I don't think you need this overhang. So let's go through and let's rip out some of this, because again it's a different design than what you had before. And so often what I see here is I see designs that are different, but we don't really see them as different. We see them as, oh, this is just like that other thing. Yeah, we still need the div. This is going to get a bit messy, to be honest with you, as I go through. I am going to be ripping a lot. I think this. Yeah, let's rip a lot of this out. I just want to simplify. Okay. If any, like, here we get an opportunity to see the difference in how I'm simplifying. Right now you have div, image, div. Here I'm going with, you know, there will be a div, but it's going to wrap the whole shebang. Okay? And we're going to go 1FR, 2FR, 1FR, 2FR. And the reason we're doing this is this is a different structure than what you had before. So I'm just going to empty this class out. I'm going to get rid of these. Now I may have to come back and get some of the classes, like you've got this class of text. Where is it? I may have already ripped it out. Oh, product text. I may have to come back and use that. I'm not sure what that does. You're like, well, Chris, if you're not sure what it does, why are you ripping everything out? It'd be all right. Did I already get that one? It looks like I did. Okay, so I don't need that one. So div class, image, div class, image, and I'm gonna add some notes in here. Stakeholder. This one down here is for developers. And you may be asking yourself, if you're watching this, okay, so Chris, I can see that stakeholders is right there. Why are you adding that up here? Well, it's because this image is part of it, and I don't really need a div because I'm using CSS Grid. I'm using CSS Grid right here. And because I'm using it there, I don't need this to have an extra div around it just to hold it. So I'm just adding a note. And then we got to do the same thing down here. And so much of this is just simplification. The more you can simplify your code, the better and happier everybody's going to be. And then, of course, yeah, still need that div. This should kick in though, so I have improperly pulled that back out. So it should be like that, because the section, this div that holds the grid is at the same level as this H3 and P tag. Then we have stakeholder, we have developers, and then we have this final one, which is investors. Okay, so it's gonna look all ugly when I get back. All right, yes. So it's like, wait, hey, it's full width, and what the hell's going on? Fine, we got this. We got this. Because now what we're going to do is we're going to say class cell user grid. Okay. Naming convention. Cell-wise. What within cell-wise? User. What is that? Grid. Okay. So it's like we're getting more specific with the naming as we go in. Cell user grid makes it really easy to find. We're gonna go here with wide wire because wide wire is just below this. So cell user grid display, obviously grid. And now we're gonna go grid template columns, 1FR, 1FR, 2FR, and then we're going to say grid gap well, if I could write some CSS, 1 rem. Okay, let's take a look. Booyah, did I blow it up? Yeah, I blew it up. What happened? What happened, Chris? What happened? That just doesn't seem right. Well, let's take a look. See what, I probably missed a tag somewhere. Made all the images go away. I made everybody sad. So there's one image. There's two images. Where is this? Where is this at? I don't really know. I don't know where my images went. Okay, so what did I break? Cell user grid. Got it. It should just be 1, 2, 1, 2. I don't see where that's busted. And I also don't see where the images went. Like, is there... I don't know what product image is. I just want to come back over and... It's just so weird that this is behaving in this way. So I'm curious. Alright, so... Those come back. Why do they go away though? I see why. Well, no, I don't actually. Oh, weird. So full is causing a problem? Interesting. Okay. That's different. Let's get rid of full here, because they appear to be struggling with that. Okay, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so they're back. So something with the full class was causing an issue here. I'm not sure what. Grid template columns 1 FR 2 FR. Oh, yeah, I pulled off all the other styles here, so I'm not sure if if product area, that was also something that was here. Let's find that real quick. Product image. Okay, well that was just like product image, grid area image, and because grid area wasn't defined, was that causing a problem? Could have been, but I don't really think so. Let's try to get grid template. So cell user grid 1FR 5FR. I don't understand why this is 3FR. Let's put that half. I know you've got a style of half that you've used elsewhere, or 3/4. Or I thought you did. Maybe you don't. Not sure why 88 pix is drawing that error, throwing an error, but full width. So there's full width, full. Yeah, I don't see a problem with having a class full on this. It's very interesting though. I wonder if instead of going 1FR, if we gave this a very specific, so if we said, okay, you are going to be 100 pixels. Yes, 100 pixels. And I think that's because it's a fractional unit. So if we said 25%, 75%, which is essentially the same thing, it works again. So if you say 50%, it's going to break. It'll be like, hey, how's that work? It's got to add up. So if it's the 35, 65, still works. Grid gap can grow because grid gap is not considered to be part of that. So there's 35, 65, and as this comes down, you obviously, the next thing you have to do though is you have to write a media query, because fractional units they'll hold the entire time. But we're looking at these and wondering why aren't those working, and it's because we don't have full established on them. So this is just the concept of full width not agreeing with fractional units, but here we have it. Now obviously the trick here is that in CSS grid we still have to come back and say at media, and let's see, I think it's and width, but yeah, min width, basically that. User grid, there we go. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to flip this around, as I often will do. I know I talk about writing mobile first, but I almost always do it this way. 1FR, and then above that we obviously adjust that size. I do not need display grid, so we'll come down in size, and then at some point this will snap and it is tall, and then it will go back the other way and it is wide, and you get the idea. So tall, wide, right? And that's the structure that you had. The thing that you were trying to implement, Rebecca, was the structure for another very different usage where it was going back and forth. And this is kind of the trouble that we get into when we kind of half understand what is going on with CSS Grid. This does illuminate, you know, some of the barriers that you've got to work through. You know, could we do this the same way that you used it before? Well, yeah, but that isn't what we had in the design. And I always want to make sure that we're working to the design as you have it. I mean, I could come in here and say, well, we need a different style on this company stakeholders because this is all caps, but this is up and down. You know, in those instances, I think it's important to where can we get consistency? Because in your other case study, this is all caps. Here, you had it designed up and down. Maybe that's where we need it to be in all caps, like all the way across. Just again, consistency. There's other areas that I would take a look at as well, like this spacing here. This is probably going to work better if you were to come through and group them together. Right now the problem is there's specific spacing on that H3 and the P. Let's take a look at that really quick. So here's the H3. The H3's got, you know, section. It's got this margin bottom H3 on it. Or, you know, so you got to get rid of that. And then you keep coming through, and it's also got like padding bottom on it. And then you get something that's functional. But, you know, right now it's just got too much. It's got too much on it. I think you could have the margin bottom. The padding bottom is a bit too much. But it's this combination. And the question I have there is that is an H3 really what you need to have there? I see why you have the padding bottom. It's for areas like this. But areas like this don't have a single line of content underneath them. So users is, you know, the structure of users is a lot different than how it's being used elsewhere. Everywhere else you don't run into this particular setup where you have the one line. Okay, so you need to come up with a solution that allows that to operate, or that accommodates that. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and push this up because we've done quite a bit of futzing around. Get status, get add, get commit, updates from feedback loop, get push origin master, and away we go. I'm gonna check. Yeah, looks like we're clean. We're clear. So hey folks, that's been the feedback loop for Monday morning. Hope hope you and yours are doing well, and I will chat with all of you again tomorrow. And Katie, Rebecca, I will see both of you a little later today. Take care.